Hello, everybody. Dr. Carmen Bryant, Psychological Health Consultants and Services. And this is my program, Redefining Yourself. First of all, I would like to thank everybody that tuned in on Sunday. Thank you for joining me and talking to me. Thank you guys so much for the questions. The topic at that particular time was why does the narcissist supply harass me? And so I'm just going to recap a little bit and then answer some questions that were sent to me via email. And so if you have not already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It is Dr. Carmen Bryant, Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. Make sure you hit the bell so that you can see whenever I post a new video or whenever I come in. For those of you that have been asking me, when do I come in? I am on the West Coast, and so on the West Coast is Pacific Standard Time, and so I usually try to come in on Sundays between 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I know that's usually, I think, Montana area. I think that's 1 to 2. I think somebody in Chicago, that's 2 hours. And then heading over toward the East Coast, that's 3 hours. Alabama, that's 2 hours. And I think it's 2 hours. Alabama is 2 hours. Georgia is 3 hours. East Coast, 3 hours. And then Canada and Nova Scotia, that is 4 hours. And I believe in UK, I believe that may be 8 to 9 hours. I'm not sure. Then we have a young lady from Holland. We have another young lady from Denmark. Mein Bekannte in Deutschland, in Hamburg. That I don't know what the time difference is there. But Christi zu dir. And thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys so much. She's given me an opportunity to continue to practice my first language, which was German. So thank you so much, Miss Nadine, for allowing me to talk to you. I can read a little bit. Ich kann ein bisschen lesen, aber viele kann ich nicht mehr verstehen. Aber ich kann es lesen. Ich spreche Hochdeutsch und kann nicht mehr beides sprechen. Aber danke zu dir that you talk to me in Deutsch. Thank you so much. And those of you that have not also have a professional Facebook page, which is Psychological Health Consultants and Services. You're welcome to hit the like button and follow me. I post videos on both of those, and I go live on both of those channels on Sundays. So thank you guys so much. Mr. Todd, thank you so much for sharing your information. And this is kind of leading into this topic today about drug and alcohol abuse and use. And this is from one of the viewers that sent me a message, and also Ms. Julie K. You also asked a question as well. I have not forgotten the other questions. I know one of the other questions was to talk about narcissist bosses, and that is my privilege. I would do that. For those of you that have questions, it's easier for you guys to email it to me, because when you email it to me, I have it and I can run through the list before I do the videos. A lot of times I have other topics, but you know, if your topic is a pretty good topic, and I know for a fact that a lot of people have been emailing me about that very specific topic, that is the topic that I usually do. And so I do thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for the support. All the new viewers, all the new subscribers, thank you guys so much for subscribing to my channel. You know, I do not take it lightly, because you could have been watching any other video that you wanted to watch, but you felt like that something that I had to say was relevant to your healing process or gathering your information. For some of you guys have let me know that this is a very hard process. It is. You are going through a grief and loss process, just like if anyone had lost a loved one. You lost someone that you loved, but that person is still alive. For some people, they lost a loved one, the person is not there to look at anymore. And so then on top of that, to be discarded, or for you to discard. And I think I had a viewer say, you know, why do people say take a discard as a blessing, or take a discard because it hurts so much? It does hurt, but a lot of times you find that empathetic people, or people that are connected to narcissists, are very loyal individuals. They are loyal individuals, and so 9 times out of 10, you probably won't go anywhere. Until things get really bad, or they discard you, and you hold on, because in another video I said there was a gentleman that said that the last thing that most people let go of is hope. So you continuously hope that this narcissist will change. And so that leads me into this topic. The topic, first thing, allow me to address Ms. Julie K. Ms. Julie, you asked me to talk about stalking and cars. Stalking in cars. First of all, a narcissist that's been discarded, if you've discarded the narcissist, they're going to harass you or stalk. Remember, it's still under the umbrella of domestic violence. Narcissist abuse is under the umbrella of domestic violence. And so they stalk, they do everything that you would find under domestic violence. That's what they do. you may be dealing with an individual though that has a diagnosis called narcissistic personality disorder. Now, everybody is not a narcissist. Some people are just egotistical. Some of them are very selfish. So it's easy just to call someone a narcissist. But narcissist personality disorder has distinct features, which I talked about in another video. It has distinctive features. There are features that they have that qualify them for the diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. For a lot of people that have been in relationship with narcissists, it doesn't require you to open up a DSM and look at all the criteria to diagnose someone. They do it all the time. So it's very easy, even watching these videos, to pick out, that's what they did. Oh, that's what they did. And so you kind of know. I mean, they have a very distinctive behavior. One of them is grandiosity. They think they're better than the average person. They think that they're smarter, and that and the lack of empathy and the lack of excuse me just a minute. I had to look at an email coming through. Sorry about that. But a lack of empathy, that lack of compassion. They do not have the capacity to feel compassion or empathy for people. And so, those are like the two biggest things that you'll see with a narcissist, and a lot of them do have other diagnosis, like major depression. It's called comorbid. I didn't open up my book, but they have other diagnoses too. A lot of them have, post-traumatic stress. They have drug and alcohol addictions. They have anxiety. They have major depression, some severe. Some of them do have other things. Some of them have autism, So they have other diagnoses as well, not just that you're looking at an individual with just narcissistic personality disorder. Some of them do have other diagnoses, psychopath and sociopath. Some of them are histrionic. Histrionic is that super uber dramatic that's connected to the super uber dramatic to the narcissist. And that's the only way I can kind of explain it without sounding super professional, when I say using those big terminologies to make it easier to understand. But one of the things, Ms. Julie, you ask is to talk about them stalk. They stalk. It doesn't matter how they stalk. They stalk. Whether it's in a car, they driving by your house, they break into your home. And I think had another viewer say that, the narcissist, when she discarded, he kept breaking into her home. This is not the first time I heard this. I've had other viewers email me and say that the narcissists have broken into the home. They steal paperwork. They're just you have to think you're dealing with a chronologically older individual. It could be within their 50s, 60s, 40s, 30s, whatever, but emotionally and really mentally you're dealing with a child in a grown person's body, a child with adult responsibilities. And the way that they're responding, when you look at them, they're responding to you like a kid. So if you're discarding, they'll stalk you whatever way they want to. They'll stalk you. They'll ride by their house. They'll look to see if you've replaced them with, especially if they have not connected to another supply. If they haven't connected to another supply, you have caused a narcissistic injury. And so now they're looking, because their whole thing is their ego. So they're looking to see if you replace them with someone else, and they'll ride by your house to see what you're doing, to gather information. So it doesn't matter how they do it, what mode of transportation they use to do it, they'll stalk. So it doesn't matter whether they use a vehicle or not. And in the live broadcast that I did, just to recap on that, they'll use anybody. If you go no contact and you don't say anything to them whatsoever, they'll use any flying monkey or anything connected to them to try to make contact. All they need is some fuel, which means all they may need is for you to have an emotional reaction. You can't react, you have to respond. They want a reaction. So you may have the new the new supply. And that's what I talked about, and as we were going through the question and answer, but that's what I was talking about, is that the new supply becomes a pawn in the game of the narcissist. And you have to think, the narcissist has smeared your name. Of course, they've already made you look like this horrible individual, so they've got the new supply to side with them. So of course, the new supply is doing all, remember, flying monkeys too. So they got the new supply doing all the fighting for them. And think about it. I mean, I've heard stories where, where the narcissist can smear campaign you, or take a woman or a man, and smear them in a court proceeding and say horrible untrue things about this individual. All they want you to do is to respond. That's what they're wanting you to do. And they've probably already told the new supply, all these horrible things, but they never tell what they've done. So they'll prod the bear, harass you, poke you until you finally blow up and just, leave me alone. And you finally say something, and then they tell the new supply, see, look at the behavior. The part that they leave out is the part that they played in the role, because they don't want the new supply to know that they're still harassing you, because it makes it look like they still care, which they don't care about anybody. They just want some fuel. And so they'll play the new supply against you so they can say, I didn't do anything, that was between you two, because they want you to respond to the new supply, and they want the new supply to respond to you, because you feel insecure because they got a new supply, and the new supply may look better than you, and so you're feeling a low self-esteem and feeling bad about yourself, so you're willing to lash out at the new supply. Likewise, what you don't know going on in the background is that they've made you look like a superstar, even though the dumb thing about this is that they'll smear campaign you so much to the new supply that they don't realize they're making you look good at the same time. They make you look bad and good at the same time. They have literally created this superstardom in this new supply's head over you. And so now this new supply is now looking at you, and you don't make any contact. You keep your cool. Don't make any contact. Don't respond. You let the new supply do whatever she or he wants to do. Don't reply to that nonsense, because they want to pull you into this triangulation. They want you to respond. They love to see people fight over them. You keep your cool. Don't say anything at all. As long as he or she is not interfering with your job, your money, your safety, your kids, don't respond to that. And eventually you'll create a callus. And when I say a callus, I don't mean that you don't have any compassion, emotion. Eventually it won't matter to you. And when you take the fuel out of a fire, the fire ends up dying. But a narcissist is one of those type people that are going to just keep prodding you. They're like little gnats. Like little gnats, always in your face and in the way. That's what they do. And then they use the people around them. The new supply ends up being a pawn in this whole game, but doesn't even realize he or she is being played against you, because they just want a response. And 9 times out of 10, the new supply is responding. You're the one that's not responding, and they want the response from you. They want the fuel from you. And they love to see two people fight. They want to see the two supplies fight. So ladies, gentlemen, keep your cool. You don't have to respond. Don't be reactive. Be responsive. Think before you respond. If it doesn't require a response, every battle is not yours to fight. Some battles just meant for you to sit and watch from a distance. But like I said, a lot of times they'll poke the bear, and by the time you blow up, this new supply, they're like, see, I told you. But they're not going to tell them what they did to cause you to be triggered like that. So you just be cool, okay? The next question I had a subscriber send me an email, and she told me the story about the narcissist that she was connected to. And I don't want to read everything, but one of the things that she was saying is, she asked, do the narcissists know or feel that they have some type of chemical imbalance to begin with, but turn to drugs to self-medicate, and is chemical drug dependency hereditary, as this individual narcissist biological mother was a crack addict, and he's a crack baby who was left in an abandoned building for 2 days before he was discovered at 18 days old. That's sad. And his biological father is an alcoholic who was a double amputee, diabetic, but still rolls around in his wheelchair drunk, running into walls. Okay, and then the question was, I'm asking because I think it's in his blood and DNA, which makes it harder for him to break his addiction. Okay, so first of all, you're dealing with 2 different situations. First of all, you're dealing with a narcissist that is also an addict. First of all, as I talked about in another video, narcissism usually comes about, it's a personality disorder, meaning that in the time that the personality was forming, 0 to 3 and then 3 to 12, that personality was forming, there was some type of injury in between that developmental stages, those developmental years. A lot of them, you'll notice situations like this right here, sexual abuse. Majority of all the ones that I'm not saying this is a general statement, because not all of them may have. I don't know. I have not met, and I don't know with other therapists what your experiences were dealing with a narcissist. I know that every single person that I've ever diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, and on top of that, those individuals that I've had an opportunity to talk to or have dealt with on a daily basis, each and every single one of them have been sexually molested, male and female alike. Now, this is just my experience. I can't speak on anyone else's experience. I can only speak on my experience as a clinician and as a person, that every single narcissist that I've ever come in contact with, within a clinical setting or within, outside of the clinical setting, each and every single one of them all have been sexually molested as children. Do understand that sexual molestation to a child, meaning that they're exposed to something that their mind was not prepared for. Their mind, your mind is a protective measure. The mind tries to protect the mind. It tries to protect the person. And what happens is, a lot of time in the process of trying to protect an individual, the mind does many things. So everyone does not end up with narcissistic personality disorder. Some people post-traumatic stress, or some people have developed dissociative disorder. If you read about dissociative disorder, which is known as multiple personality disorders in the past, the mind splits to protect itself. In dissociative personality disorders, the mind will split into different distinct personalities that dress different, that sound different, that even look different. I have had a case once or twice where, because when you see it, you'll never forget it. So when you see a person with dissociative disorder, when you see them switching into a new personality, another personality, for many people, they've never seen it, so most of them don't believe it. But when you've seen it yourself with your eyes and you've heard it, no one can ever convince you of what you saw. I have seen it. I've seen, and I know, because I watch a lot of shows about facial reconstructions and plastic surgery. So I know, in order to I had braces, and so when I had braces, it changed my jawline, and so my jawline was different. So when I came to the airport, my mother picked me up. She actually said, I didn't recognize you at first because the bone structures in my jaw were a little different. So the braces shifted my jaw. But I saw an individual that switched several times, and when I looked at the individual, the facial features were different. And so for me, I went to my supervisor, and my supervisor, like, you saw it too? She says, I was talking to when she was going through her internship, she talked to her psychiatrist, psychologist that was her supervisor. She said she saw it too. She says, so I know you saw it because I've seen it before. It's rare. You don't see it that often. But when you see it, you'll never forget it. And I know her facial features had changed. And I said, there's no possible way that a human being's facial features can change like that unless they have surgery. And there's no way you can have surgery within a 3-minute period of time of me looking at you and then you switching. And so think about it for a minute. So this is, and those people with dissociative personality disorder all have been some type of sexual trauma in their youth, some severe trauma that caused their mind to split off in different distinct personalities, male, female, little kids, older kids, anything. And that's how they function. And then they have memory gaps. They have dissociative memory gaps for a long period of time. And I'll give you an example. If you've ever driven down the highway and your mind is just focused on something, and you're driving and you make it home, but you can't remember the drive home. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't even remember driving home. That is a mild form of dissociation. Now imagine that for hours and days period of time where they cannot remember, and there's distinct personalities that are operating. So that is also a result of trauma. There are other results of trauma, even though in some studies, if you read with bipolar disorder, usually bipolar begins to manifest itself, I think, within teens, in the teenage years, I think it is. But usually a lot of times it's triggered by some traumatic event. Schizophrenia, usually schizophrenia will begin to manifest toward, normally the manifestation is toward the end of, or I think is mid young adulthood, with 20s to late 20s is usually that time period that schizophrenia will show up. Something happened to trigger, So the mind is a very unique thing. And in narcissistic personality disorder, the personality is developed. There, you have this young baby that was abandoned in a building for 18 days. It didn't have any skin-on-skin contact. It didn't have any compassion or empathy from the mother or the father. Both of them were drug addicts. And so that personality of the baby began to develop. And yes, you have to also look at, so the empathy has been cut off. and it's a protective measure. So it's a protective measure went wrong. Narcissistic personality is like like the immune deficiency disorder. It's an immune system. The protection of the immune system from the body went wrong, and it starts attacking the body. Well, with narcissistic personality disorder, it's almost like it backfired. So it's protecting the mind, but it went overboard. And so you also have to look that this young man was also predisposed. So this is totally separate than narcissistic personality disorder. This young man has been predisposed. He's genetically predisposed to alcohol and drug addiction. 9 times out of 10, just reading the story, when I do a write-up, I ask, what is your drug of choice? Your drug of choice also tells me what state of mind you want to be in. If it's heroin or any kind of pain meds, I know you want to be down. If it's speed, I know you want to be up. For people that, for example, that have bipolar disorder or like ADHD severely, a lot of them that are in the homeless population, a lot of them choose methamphetamines because methamphetamine calms them down, allows them to think. So they self-medicate themselves. But it also depends on the type of trauma, the type of drugs that they use. In order, they don't want to deal with the reality of life or feel emotions. And so here you have a mother and a father who are both addicted to drugs and alcohol. Lets me know that they also went through some type of traumatic event in their life, and they're self-medicating because they don't want to feel, they don't want to think. And so genetically, of course, and I'm assuming, I don't know, I'm assuming that, well, no, I'm not assuming. You just said it right here. He was born crack addicted. So it was already in his system. He was already predisposed. Both parents, are drug addicted and alcohol addicted individual, probably went through some severe trauma. Then he's in the womb, in embryo, he's in womb. And on top of that, he is now addicted as a baby. So he's genetically predisposed. Yes, in his DNA, it's in his DNA, both sides of the family. And on top of that, he's also traumatized as a child. So he probably, if he's not, you said he's narcissist, so he's narcissist. He probably has some childhood trauma. He probably has some, what they call, what is it? It's not separation anxiety. It's, they have a bonding problem. There's a name for it. They have a problem with the bonding issues. So lacks empathy, because he was not taught to have empathy and compassion. Lacks empathy and compassion because he never felt it, never experienced it, has been traumatized, never know what else has happened to him. And so he's got a lot of things going on. He's probably got post-traumatic stress. He probably has some neurological problems because when a child is born addicted to substance, whether it's drugs or whether it's alcohol, the neurological system within a child is also malfunctioned or has been affected. So now it probably have some neurological damage, probably also has some learning disabilities. So if he has some learning disabilities on top of that, a whole bunch of things. And so the drug and alcohol is not a result of the narcissist. The narcissistic personality disorder is the personality has gone awry and developed dysfunctionally to protect him. And on top of that, he's a drug addict who has been predisposed in womb and by both parents and in an environment where that is the way that he self-medicates. You have children that have been born to alcoholic parents or parents who have a higher tolerance for alcohol and more susceptible to becoming addicted to drugs and alcohol. Most people that I see within a clinical setting, when I do the assessment to find out, what drugs they're addicted to, 9 times out of 10, and more times than none, that sounded pretty good, huh? 9 times out of 10 and more times than none, there is family of drug and alcohol addiction. It is generational and it goes back, because that is the way that they learn to cope with stress. And so that is the way that he learned to cope with stress is with drug addiction. His choice of drug happens to be crack. So to answer that question, yes, he is genetically predisposed to drug and alcohol, but that doesn't have anything to do with a narcissistic personality disorder. That is distinct in itself. He's probably dealing with major depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and some other stuff to go along with it. I don't know. I'm just going by what I'm reading. So that in itself. So hereditary, predisposed, genetically predisposed. And so that's just like whenever I talk to people that have been within foster care system, if they have been in foster care system for long periods of time and then they have children that's in the foster care system, if I look back, usually they have family, their parents parents before that, you know. So a lot of that you can see the course of a person. You can see where a person can go if they never get help, if they never have people to intervene to try to help them. So hopefully this answered your question. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to say who you are on here. And so, but because she sent it to me via email, it wasn't posted on the YouTube channel. But hopefully, I did. One of my loyal subscribers, that is what she wrote me. So one of my loyal subscribers, hopefully I answered that question. Hopefully that made sense. And so, and Ms. Julie K, you did post your question publicly, and hopefully that answered your question. And so hopefully I'll also recap from the question and answer, and that was a question that was asked by another viewer about why is the new supply harassing me. So hopefully this answered your questions for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys so much for all the support, and thank you for all the emails. Thank you for sharing your stories. And as I always tell you in every video, first of all, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so you can hear whenever I post. Make sure you share these videos, because you never ever know who is being affected by narcissist abuse. You never know who we can help. And it takes us as a team, it takes us as a family, as a village, to come together to help. Just like you're being helped, someone needs to be helped. They don't know that they're in a narcissistic relationship, and by sharing these videos, instead of trying to make them feel bad about being in a relationship like this, because you have to remember, go back and watch trauma bonds. Trauma bonds are very powerful, and a lot of times a person has been so brainwashed they can't come out of it. They don't see, they have been so brainwashed that they don't see what you see. And to educate them and begin to let them see what you see and how you're healing, it's a very traumatic relationship. You know, there is the domestic violence, and then there's regular relationships when you break up, but narcissist abuse is very, very unique and requires a lot of patience and a lot of time to unwind a person's mind from what they have went through with a narcissist. And so for those of you that are out there hurting, go through the process. Don't look at it as being strange, like this is something horrible that I'm going through. You're going through a grief and loss process. To be discarded is great for you. Take that discard and run with it, you know, and heal from it, you know, and go no contact. I'm going to do one on no contact, because some of you guys are going no contact, but you still do this, you still do this. Take them all off your social media. Stop following them on social media. Stop stalking them on social media. Quit looking to see what the new supply looks like, and the new supply is better than me. No, they're not. They're in the same position that you're in. You know, you were able to provide this much supply. They found someone else to provide this much supply. But just like you went through the cycle of abuse, they're going to go through the same thing. They're probably being devalued as we speak. And if they don't have the information, they're not going to respond the way that you respond, or they're not learning yet. It takes time. It took time for you to learn. And for some of you were in relationship for 20, 30 years. Some of you said 15, 20, 30, 10 years. And what ended up happening is you just now are realizing what you came out of or what you were in. For those of you that are in a relationship and you're starting to wonder and you're not married to that individual, get out. Leave them alone. If they are abusing you, there's nothing wrong with separating and getting away from them, getting a protection order. Protect yourself. Get information. I'm not the only one. There's many of us on YouTube that are teaching. You have Associate Direct, Mr. Quinn Holiday. You have Angie Atkinson. You have Queen Being. You have Kim Saeed. You have Sarah Speaks. You have all these people that are coaches. Melanie Tanya Evans, Sarah Speaks. All these people that are coaches that are teaching you about. There's another one, Little Shaman. She's pretty good. But these are all the people that are teaching you about narcissist abuse and recovering from it. Now, keep in mind, everybody that's on YouTube that is teaching about narcissist abuse is not a coach and is not a person recovering. Some of these people are actually narcissists. Listen to me. That's why I'm getting close to the camera. All the people that are on YouTube that claim to be people that help you recover from narcissist abuse are not helpers, are not coaches. They're actually narcissists. You have to be careful who you connect with, ladies and gentlemen. Even on my YouTube channel, everybody on there is not a survivor of narcissist abuse. Some of these people on the YouTube channel are actually narcissists. Be careful what you say. Some of the things that you guys tell me, save it and send it to me via email. All of them are not survivors of narcissist abuse. Some of them are actually narcissists. They know what they're doing. You have the lower, the mid, you have the elite, and the greater narcissist. You guys know, we just talked about this, dealing with the other gentleman that makes the YouTubes about that, which Mr. Todd introduced us to, well, not introduced us, but talked about. he's one that talks about it all the time. Not Todd, but the other gentleman that he announced. That he presented talks about it all the time. And so there are different levels in narcissism. The lower to mid are usually ones that have no self-control. They can't control their rage. They can't control, they're ones that will physically abuse you, stalk you, do illegal things, and they have no sense. Narcissists have no sense of the law. They don't care about the law. It doesn't apply to them. They're above the law. That's how they are. That's how they think. As they begin to mature into their fine craft of narcissism, as they would say, and they're perfecting their craft, they're also perfecting how they respond. They know not to attack you. They know not to lose control. And some of them do it in the home. Those coverts do it in the home, but they won't do it out in public. And it's called gaslighting, to make you look crazy in front of people. So hopefully you're learning something from these videos. If you haven't already, start from the first videos that I posted and work your way up to get this information in your system. You got to purge out the rest of the information and get in the new information to change the way that you're thinking. Remember, cognitive behavior therapy is basically changing your cognitions to change your behaviors. And some of you guys are doing an excellent job. You guys are sending me email. You guys are doing a great job. It's just a very painful process, a very painful process. I had a nurse tell me a long time ago when I was having my daughter. I was young. And I was having my daughter, and I was in labor, and I was telling her it hurts. She looked at me, old school nurses, and she's like, well, you should have thought about that when you were doing it. Should have thought about that before you did it. And I'm thinking to myself, if it hurt like this when you were doing it, most people wouldn't have done it. Think about it. So if you would have known it would have hurt like this, you wouldn't have connected with the individual because you didn't have the information. So if you would have knew it would have hurt like this, who is anyone to tell you if you should have known better? You should have known. It hurts like this. You should have known better to get in a relationship. Well, if you don't know what you're dealing with, now you have some information to make better choices. Now you have information, and now you can pick up on red flags. It's a little easier to pick up on certain behaviors and certain things that they say. There's certain words that they use that trigger you. There's certain words that they use. Even now, certain words people use, they trigger you. Well, you have more information now to make a more informed decision about who you date, who you go out with, what you see. You can pick up on things quicker than you did before you knew. So hopefully this is helping you. Just go back to the beginning of my videos and just begin to get them in your system. Share these videos. Share the videos with people. You never know who's going through this. And thank you guys so much for supporting me. Thank you guys for emailing me. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. To all the new subscribers that are here for the first time, thank you guys for joining me. I will come on live on Sundays, usually about 8, 9 o'clock, because I do have other obligations first, and then I usually come on about 8, 9 o'clock, and I know for some of you guys that's kind of late because you're on the East Coast and in Canada and even overseas. Thank you so much to my brothers and sisters overseas in the UK and Denmark and Holland and Deutschland. Thank you guys so much. And Canada, thank you so much for joining me. I am so honored that you guys would join me, especially from all these beautiful countries. We are international now, and so I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Subscribe. Dr. Carmen Bryant, Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. Hit the bell. Go to my professional Facebook page, Psychological Health Consultants and Services. Thank you guys so much. And as my friend always says, go and be great.